Radio Free Santa Clarita presents the Talk of Santa Clarita, a podcast about issues involving Santa Clarita and the surrounding valley. With your host, Stephen Daniels. Episode 170, Democratic candidate for the 25th Congressional District, Rhoda Nazanin. And now, let's see what the Talk of Santa Clarita is.
And remember, this is for posterity, so be honest.
Okay, Rhoda, thank you for coming and being on the Talk of Santa Clarita today. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for having me.
It is early morning, so it's not quite hot yet, but I admire the fact that you wore a jacket in the seat. Because I literally brought bottles of frozen water so people can gauge just how hot it's getting in while we're talking. First question for you is, how is the campaign going in general right now? I mean, it's just kind of really getting started.
It is. It's going really well. I've just been able to connect and meet with so many people, and I have a really amazing team behind me that is so supportive because I do work 2 jobs, and so I know my time is limited, but it's going, and we've had some really great virtual events, but I'm excited to finally have an in-person event this coming Wednesday, and so it'll be great to actually see people. So
yeah.
I enjoy it. I love meeting people and talking, so it's been great.
That's interesting because I don't like people. I don't like talking to people either.
Why am I here? No.
No, I just love irony. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you first, because I was fascinated when I read your bio. I mean, it's a really interesting story. You're originally from Iran, correct?
Yes.
Correct. Tell me about what you remember about your time there. First off, let's start with that.
Well, I lived in Iran for 8 years. I was 8 years old when we moved. Literally, since the day that I was born, I've been in church. My father is a pastor, and we are Assyrian, so we are born into Christian families. Because Assyrians are Orthodox Christian background. And so growing up, I mean, you really don't notice anything up until the age of 6. I went to kindergarten to an Assyrian private school, and my parents could, afford that at the time. And then at some point we couldn't, so I had to go to a public school, which was an all Iranian women's or all girls school. Right. And the dynamic just completely changed. Yeah. I was now, 6.5, so I had to wear a hijab to cover my head to toe, like you couldn't show anything. And then here I was going to an all-Muslim school where, as a Christian, we would, kind of like how we do here, we line up in assembly in the morning. I don't know if it still happens, but
it does.
We do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then, we go announcements and you go to class. Well, here we would line up by class or grade, and they would do the morning prayer. And as a Christian, it was kind of weird and difficult for me because I'm like, I don't do this. And so my parents had to have like a conversation with the school principal, say, listen, our daughter, we're Assyrians. Can she not participate in that? And so,
I'm betting the answer was no.
Well, of course, it came with a lot of heat where it was just like, well, this doesn't look good. And then they had me sitting alone in a classroom waiting until all that was over. But I precisely remember my dad came to the United States to kind of feel out what the situation would be before he moved us. And I remember this day as if it was just yesterday. We were standing in assembly, and before the morning prayer, they had everyone chanting "Death to America."
Oh, wow.
Death to America. And I turned to one of the girls that I was friends with, and I said, oh my goodness, like, but my dad is in America right now. And I was terrified.
Right, yeah.
And so, as a child, you don't understand the things that your parents have gone through.
Yeah.
But I do recall once my mom and I were walking down the street, and I was probably 5.5 years old. I was wearing shorts to my knees, but I was wearing black leggings underneath because the girls had to be covered. And at that time, you didn't have to wear a hijab until you were like 7 or 8 years old. And so I was fully covered, but I was wearing shorts with black leggings underneath. And my mom was holding my hand. We were walking down. This guy came up to her and started screaming at her, "How dare you? You let your daughter wear that? Because she had a cross on her neck. I was like, you Christians, you're trying to, And it was just like witnessing that with terror, And I worried for my mom, which was like, are we okay?
Yeah.
Like, is this guy going to come back? And so my parents did a very good job to make sure that we were happy and that we didn't feel and experience the pain that they did. Even when we came here, they never tried to let us know that, like, oh, life is hard.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I started asking questions, like, Mom, how was this? How was that? And, when they would share the stories and you research it, and it's just like, I can't believe they lived through all of that.
Was it culture shock when you came to America? Obviously things are radically different here.
Yes.
Did you suffer from culture shock, or did it feel more like home to you in a certain way?
It was I think I've always been a kid and an adult who loves adventure and who loves new things, right? When we arrived, it was definitely interesting to look around and see letters that I couldn't make sense of.
Ah, I see.
I didn't speak English at all.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, because you have no accent at all.
Well, there's a story behind that.
A lot of television would be my guess.
Well, I'll tell you this. When we arrived in July 11th, 1993, also 7-Eleven is my favorite store because we get free Slurpees on 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
So I arrived on 7-Eleven, and of course school then started in September. And the only 3-4 words that I knew was yes, no, okay, and hi.
Yeah.
And so knowing school was coming up, I did watch that. The way that I learned English was I need to learn as much as I can. So I watched television as much as I could and would practice things. And I didn't have anyone that I could ask, like, what does this mean? So it was dictionaries and some books that I would ask my dad, or my brother had taken English classes in Iran. So when I came to school, like, it was just exciting. The whole experience of coming here to the States for me as an 8-year-old was very exciting. The saddest part for me was leaving all my cousins behind. We didn't have a single family member here. I didn't have any cousins here. I found out later on, like, I had a second cousin here, and I was like, great, oh my goodness, I have family, but they live like 4 hours away. But the challenging part was when I went to school, I just felt like anybody else, right? Because I growing up in Northridge, I had a lot of Hispanic friends, or it was very diverse, very, very diverse. And so I never noticed the difference until people started making fun of me because of my accent. And making fun of me because I had a unibrow. Making fun of me because I had, hair on my arm more than they did. And that's when it was just like, oh, okay, I'm different.
Yeah.
So I made a promise to myself that I'm going to learn English so well that you'll never know that I was born in another country. And I speak 2 other languages as well.
What other languages do you speak?
I speak Farsi and Assyrian.
Wow.
So I wanted to make sure that, I kept all of my cultural background and try to pass it on to, my children or my nieces, So that was, the challenging part was definitely school.
I thought it was interesting that you became a pastor, a preacher, minister. What would you call it?
I was a reverend,
a
pastor.
Reverend, a pastor. Okay, but you hadn't come out at the time. How did you handle that? I mean, was it tough to? I mean, I don't know what particular church you were a preacher for, but I
was part of the Assemblies of God.
Assemblies of God. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know much about religion because I'm an atheist. So I was wondering, are they welcoming to the gay community or LGBTQ community?
Well, it's complicated.
It's complicated. How do you mean?
The Assemblies of God is welcoming to everyone, all walks of life. They can come and be a part of the church. However, homosexuality is seen as an abomination, as a sin. Yeah. And so if you are identifying LGBTQIA+, then you can't really be in leadership, in any sort of leadership, because technically you're supposed to save people from that. Right. Now,
and did you know you were gay at the time? I mean, I guess you always know in a way, but were you aware that you were hiding something, or were you aware that you were definitely gay, and or had you come to terms with it? What was your status at the time?
It was a very long and difficult journey for me in accepting who I was, because I knew I was gay, but then I also had been taught for many years that homosexuality is a sin. So I'm thinking, oh man, I'm a sinner. Like I can't be like this. So I have to deny myself and pick up my cross and follow Christ. This is not a God-pleasing lifestyle, as I've been told many and many times over and over again. Right. And so when you grow up in that, and when the same-sex marriage proposition started making its way in and conversations came, and you see how the church is responding, and you're like, well, I'm part of this church. Well, then there was so much conflict within me. But then I'm like, you know what? I'm a pastor, so I'm doing this for God, and God wouldn't want me to be gay. So I kind of put it off hold. Didn't pay any attention to it, didn't do anything about it. And then as I was hitting 30, I was just kind of like, I have so much love to give, and I want to be able to fully experience that freely and for who I am. So I decided to step away from the church only because I wanted to go back to school. And my time, I needed to be available full time. I couldn't work full time, be a minister full time, and go to school full time, because I was on path 2 years. I'd love to finish my degree.
Sure, yeah.
So when I went back to school, and I went back to Cal State Northridge after dropping out in 2006, and I found a safe space to be able to have these conversations or make a comment that, like, I met this really nice girl, and have people to talk about it. And so during those 2 years, I decided that, okay, I'm gonna do the haircut I've always wanted. So I chopped off my hair. And if you ever find like an old photo of me,
I'd love to see one.
I'll have to show it to you. I don't have my phone on me, but had really long hair, and to this day my mom would be like, oh my goodness, you have such good hair, like oh, why would you cut off? I'm like, because maintenance was like an hour a day. in the 90s I had long hair too, so I know what you're talking about. I had it down to here, so I know what you're talking about. The grunge period. It's a lot of work. And so I cut my hair, and I slowly started changing, like finding the style that I like to wear. And of course people start to notice, and they're like, is she gay? Like, what?
based on just the stereotype of the short hair.
Yeah. And I always joked around. I'm like, oh, I didn't know haircuts define a person's identity. I always and of course I never like denied that I wasn't gay. I was like, I just wasn't sure. Hair defines people's sexuality. Great. Okay. Noted. So as I went on through this journey and conversations in my very conservative Iranian or Christian American community, I started to get a lot of opposition about, like, people trying to have a conversation with me, like, I'm praying for you. And I'm like, thank you, but for what? Like, and eventually my mom found out, and I had never told her. Mm-hmm. And she was really upset because she's the pastor's wife for 40 years, and she's just like always told, from the day she was born, that man and woman, man and woman, man and woman. So that's all that was ingrained in her brain. Yeah. And my mom is the most important person in my life. I love her so much. And even though she didn't like that about me, I just could not let her go, right? And we had a conversation. I told her, I'm like, listen, when I had long hair, I was wearing shorts, a skirt and high heels. I was still this person. Now, whatever that was inside is on the outside. And so after that, a few people told me, I think you're dealing with something here. I think you're sick. Oh. I think something is wrong here. You should really seek some counseling because, I would hate for you to perish in hell. Oh. Those are really difficult things to hear.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Even as an adult. I just can't imagine when children or teenagers have to hear these types of things. Yeah. And so on my own accord, I decided, okay, I'm going to seek counseling because I don't want to disappoint my mom. Right. And if someone can be changed through prayer, I'm all for it. Right. All right.
So did you do the program that they do to ungay people?
Well, I didn't know it was that until later. Okay. So for everybody else, knows it as conversion therapy.
I like ungay.
Ungay?
Ungay, yeah. We'll ungay you.
Well, that sounds about right because it was really like, let's pray the gay away. And I was just kind of like, I believe in prayer. I believe in God. So, all right, let's do this. I found some healing in other areas of my life and, forgiving people who have done wrong. But when it came to me being queer, I'm like, I still feel the same. Like, did I fail or something? Yeah. And then I said, you know what? No. But I will tell you, and, during those 6 months of that counseling session, it was probably the hardest 6 months of my life.
Because you're told, you're not gay, you're not lesbian. Repeat after me, I'm not a lesbian. And it's like you're denying yourself and your identity, and then at the end, there's nothing left of you. I had never felt so torn apart, alone, and worthless than I did after all of that.
How did you rectify your religion, and particularly the ungayness thing, which sounds like it was just throwing guilt your way, with your sexuality? How do you rectify that now? I mean, you were raised Christian, you're raised to be conservative in beliefs, Christian beliefs and stuff like that, and then now you've come out. It seems like, it goes against everything that you've been raised to believe. How do you rectify that?
There's one thing I learned during that time since over the last 5 years, and that is that, the scripture is taken and interpreted by humans, and the message is used to help people, and sometimes it's used to sway people. I think at the end of the day, for those who are spiritual and are looking for a relationship with God, it's about that personal relationship that you have with your God. And the God that I know, the Christian God, and Jesus, and the whole Bible that I believe in, I genuinely looked at Jesus himself, and his message was love your neighbor. And then he didn't just say it, but he did it. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk in his footsteps. And I'm going to follow that and let that be what leads me to my belief. It's not people. People come and go. But if I genuinely believe in this story, in this scripture, then I know that this has been around for a long time, this is what I'm basing my faith on, then I need to focus on that. And Jesus said, love one another, forgive each other. You know, it was always about bettering a relationship. And so when things happen in my life, I said, it's not God's fault.
Right.
It's the people that were representing him that misled me, and their words and their actions hurt me. It was never God. He was just misrepresented.
It always struck me as ironic that Christians who don't support or believe in homosexuality or LGBT rights are, I mean, it's a sort of hate, and it seems like the opposite of what Jesus taught. You know what I mean? It just kind of confounded me, because it's like, well, John Stewart kind of said, you know, like, nobody's asking you to have, if you're straight, and nobody's asking you to have sex with someone of the same sex as you, why do you care? You know, it's really kind of what it comes down to. It's like, you know, what do you care? You know, so.
Yeah.
Now, are you married now? Or are you?
No, my partner and I are engaged.
Oh, congratulations!
Sarah. Thank you. Yeah.
Any kids or anything like that? Yeah.
No, just fur babies. We have a dog named Claire and a cat named Leo, and they're wonderful.
Well, they get off. Pets are our kids in a lot of ways.
Very true.
Let's talk about the fact that you're running for Congress.
Yes.
The thing I always like to kind of get to know is trying to understand about Christians. Why they are who they are, in the sense of, like, why are you a Democrat? You know, and what is it about the party that appeals to you? I mean, I mentioned my friend David, who's Iranian also, and he when he came here to and filed for citizenship, he said that literally he's registered Republican, not because he knew better or wanted, you know, or knew what he was doing. It's just like they were openly recruiting outside the doors of where they did the immigration pledge or whatever, the national citizenship pledge.
Right.
And so he registered Republican without even thinking about it. And he was Republican for a brief period of time. And you see a lot of immigrants that go more conservative with their views, you know, sometimes. And I'm just wondering, why are you a Democrat? What is it about being a Democrat that appeals to you?
Well, I mentioned that, you know, growing up in a conservative family, it was a very conservative mindset.
Sure.
And so I was taught and raised to be sided with the Republican Party because that's what aligned with our faith and our values and all that. But as I got older, you know, I like to read the paper, which is something that people normally
What's a
don't.
paper?
I know, right? What's a newspaper? I like reading a newspaper. I like to, you know, expand my knowledge as much as I can. And the more I would read and the more I would see as a person of faith, especially as a Christian, I'm like, wait a minute, like, I don't like what's happening, you know, the message that is being communicated to me. We'll take a look at the other side. And then, you know, this goes on. And it wasn't like a 2-day period where I'm like, aha, Democrats is the way for me.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember, like, it was a process. It wasn't like a quick flip. So when I started to experience who I am and accept the process of who I am, part of that identity came with politics as well, as I was watching and reading. And of course, all of this happened a little before Trump got into office. And then, you know, you see evangelical pastors standing up behind him and supporting him. And I'm just kind of very confused, because knowing who he is and what he has done and all of these things, I'm like, this doesn't add up. And also, we're glorifying a man. It's like, this is nothing like what I was taught. And then being queer, being an immigrant, and seeing how the Republican Party responded to those things, and just being a person of color, being a woman, I felt like there was no value for me. There was no place for me in that party.
How long were you a Republican, registered as a Republican?
I don't even know if I actually registered as a Republican.
How long have you been a registered Democrat?
That's a good question. I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I don't remember when I registered. I think I just did it online very quickly because I wanted to make sure that, I had a party. But I will tell you, when Trump got into office, that's when my world just turned upside down, because one of the first things that he did was the Muslim ban. When he came into office. I don't know if you recall, that was literally one of his first executive orders, and it was just like, wait a minute. I have so many family and friends that go back and forth, and they have green cards or they have U.S. citizenship, but we have family back home. I haven't been back because I'm afraid to go back, to be honest with you, being a queer woman who's a pastor.
Oh, they'd love you.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but it'll be, going back to it, when that Muslim ban took place, it really upset me, because Iran gets added to the list, along with the list of other Middle Eastern countries that I'm just like, what are we doing here? I left Iran to come to this country for freedom.
Right.
And to ban a group of people who practice Islam because there is what is it called, extremists on that side?
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to me. And so, as a form of wanting to be of service, I decided to go to LAX just to see, I had heard that people were being stuck in the TSA and customs for 5 to 6 hours, and I wanted to be sure to see if that could help in any way.
Hang on 1 second, okay? I'm going to pause for just 1 second.
All right, so we had a few technical problems. It is so hot out here that literally my recorder overheated. So,
Oh man.
so we're gonna try and pick up where we were. We were talking about, you were saying that Trump affected you based on the Muslim ban.
Well, yeah, that was one thing that really got me very involved politically. I always was informed, but to be more active and looking at how the Iranian community was impacted by the Muslim ban, I wanted to contribute in some way to be of service and to help. And so I went to LAX and I held up a sign that said translator, Farsi, Assyrian, and I would find immigration lawyers there who didn't speak Farsi or didn't understand it, and then with family members who were waiting for their loved ones who were stuck. So I was able to help as being a translator in between these families, and at the same time hear stories of how people were struggling and how difficult it was. I had a guy telling me about his son, how he was stuck in there for 7 hours.
Jeez.
And so they were worried, panicked, like, is he going to be sent home? If he goes back. It was frustrating to see people hurting the way that they did.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, the guy comes into office. So.
Why are you running? I want to get and I don't want like the cliched answer of like, well, because, America needs and blah, blah, blah. What I would like is an anecdote, something that tells me, what was the moment you said, I'm going to run for Congress?
Yeah, absolutely. I had never thought about public office ever. It was never.
You've never run for anything, though?
I've never ran for anything except for president in high school.
Okay. Did you win?
I did.
All right.
I did.
All right.
I've always been more the person in the background, just helping and being the hands and feet and meeting with people and talking one-on-one. Politics wasn't really my place because, politics can get ugly and it's hard. It's very difficult. So, but what I experienced in the 5 years of being under Trump and seeing what has become of our country in the last few years, I was worried for myself and for many people who are in similar positions as I am.
But why you? I mean, what is it about you that makes you think you're the best person to serve for Congress?
So, I think politics has been infiltrated by politicians who have been in there for many years.
Yeah.
And some, but most, have lost touch with what is reality for many of us.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And for me, as an immigrant, as a queer person, as a working class individual who works 2 jobs to make it every month, and seeing the discrimination I've faced growing up here for 28 years, the challenges, the financial issues, the things that my family and I have been through, but we've still made it through. I just feel like, who are they actually listening to us? Do they actually care about us? And honestly, on January 6th, I know this is like a topic for everybody, but for me, it was a different feeling. When Sarah and I were sitting and watching the certification, we were ready. We had a bottle of champagne ready to celebrate because we knew that this was it. Biden wins, Kamala wins. This is going to be great. And as we're watching what is unfolding, I got scared. My mom never watches news, never comments on politics. My mom was so worried she picked up the phone and called me.
Really?
Rhoda, what is happening in D.C.?
Right.
I said, Mom, don't worry, it's going to be fine. You know, they have it under control, nothing to worry about. Yeah, but what is happening? So after all of that, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't.
Let that motorcycle pass.
Love it.
Yes, you have a loud motorcycle. Good for you. Okay, go ahead.
I couldn't believe what was happening. It took me a couple days to process it. And Sarah and I had bought flights to DC for the inauguration in advance, before we even knew the results of the election in November. We're like, regardless, you know, we're hoping for the best.
Cross your fingers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when we were in DC for the inauguration, we were literally right where the fences started. I don't know how many 100 feet we were away, but we could see the banners, the flags hanging down on the Capitol. And there was probably about 60 people around us.
Yeah.
And I was so disappointed because I was just like, this is a celebratory day where we should be celebrating the first female vice president, the first woman of color vice president, and it was such a glorious day.
Right.
And we're so afraid to be here. And so I turned to Sarah and I said, I'm going to run for Congress. And she was just like, what? That's funny. I was like, no, really, we need to talk about this because we need proper representation in there. Because when I found out Mike Garcia had voted against the certification of votes along with many other Republicans, but this Mike is from here, this area, our district here, it really frustrated me.
Yeah.
Because I've seen what a successful insurrection looks like.
Yeah.
I've seen the aftermath and the challenges that come with that. You know, Iran was a free country at one point. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference between Iran and France.
Right.
And then after the insurrection, everything changed. My father was forced to wear a priest's collar so that he can be noticed that that's a pastor. He's a person of faith. He's a Christian. He's not a Muslim. And then it was harassing him. He was threatened. He was punched in the face. He was taken for weeks without us ever knowing where he was.
Jeez.
Why? Because this regime had changed and there was only one belief, Islam.
Yeah.
But it was very extreme. It wasn't the Islamic people that I've known, you know, it was just a form of control.
So you saw a correlation then?
I did, because what I was seeing, it reminded me of when the students who decided to protest in front of the U.S. Embassy, and then they invaded the building, they got in.
Yeah, it's an interesting comparison.
There's an interview with some of the students that are still alive. It was asked of them, you know, what was your plan to go in? Oh, we just showed up to protest. We didn't have a plan. And what did that turn into? Hostages being held? The whole country turned upside down.
Yeah.
And so some people will brush January 6th off as like, it was just a riot, it's fine. It's like, no, that was dangerous. I saw, I'm sure you've seen photos and videos of nooses, the noose that was on Capitol Hill.
They were saying hang Mike Pence.
Hang Mike Pence. Yeah. You know what happened after the regime changed in Iran? There were nooses being hung in the city centers from cranes, and the Shah's, anyone who had loyalty to the Shah was being hung in the city square. So for me, it was difficult not to see the similarities in that if they had seen one elected official, if those rioters or those insurrectionists had seen one elected officials, that they would have been like, oh, hey, buddy, what's up? Thanks for what you're doing. No, they were furious. They were angry. They didn't know what they were doing. They would have easily harmed, we saw the video of Mitt Romney
running.
How close he was.
Yeah.
So that fear, that frustration, and knowing democracy is so fragile.
Yeah.
It is. And Mike Garcia is playing with fire, and he's dangerous. You cannot take our democracy for granted, because when you do, we've seen what happens in other countries.
Well, Mike Garcia argued that he was because me being one of the people have called Mike a traitor.
Right.
And by the way, Mike and I are buddies now.
That's good.
Yeah, we're like this. Used to be a friend of the show, but his argument was, or his justification was, that he questioned the legitimacy of the ballots for is it Arizona, I believe it was, and Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
To me, that was bullshit, to be very blunt. Just an excuse, because it seemed like he was trying to get in good with Kevin McCarthy.
Right.
So let me ask you a very blatant question, or blunt question. It's like, is he a traitor? Do you see him as a traitor or a seditionist?
I think someone who sides with insurrectionists.
Well, he will say that he didn't side with the insurrectionists, that he was shocked and appalled. Now, he voted after the insurrection to challenge the Electoral College.
And I think that's where my problem is. Mm-hmm. You just experienced something where a group of people, hundreds of thousands of people, are trying to take over the Capitol and stop the voting from happening. Mm-hmm. And he goes ahead after everything that they experienced.
Yeah.
You still go ahead and vote against the certification of votes for Arizona and Pennsylvania out of concern.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that doesn't seem someone that held his promise as to uphold the Constitution and everything that comes with our democracy.
So do you consider him a seditionist then? I hate to put you on the spot on that, but I think it's important because it is probably the most important vote that I think that Mike Garcia has placed since being in Congress. Oh. So I've asked this about every candidate. It's like, do you consider him? Would you say what he did was sedition?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. Beyond that, do you think he's doing a good job?
Well, I follow his voting records.
Yeah.
And that's what speaks the loudest to me.
Yeah. What's he voted against, or voted for that you really bothered you?
When he voted against the American Rescue Plan, the Equality Act, for the people, H.R. 1, these are things that impact people like myself,
right,
and people in my community, and people in this district.
Yeah.
So I didn't see that being done for the people. It was done for himself and for his party. And I think it's kind of interesting that we're sitting here talking on Juneteenth. And it's great that Juneteenth was passed as a federal holiday, but Mike Garcia voted for that, which was great.
Yeah.
Yet he voted against the For the People Act. Those are the important bills that are going to help the people who are oppressed in this country to be able to vote, to have the money that they need to survive, to have equality and to not be discriminated against. And those are the things that matter.
Sure.
And so as a person who's an immigrant, who has been through the challenges of being an immigrant, as a person who is queer and who has been discriminated against and given a hard time, as a woman who has dealt with sexism, and as a person who grew up poor and seeing the classism that exists, I would give him, he's doing okay.
Okay.
He's not.
Wow, you're nice.
I can never be mean. That's one thing you'll find. I can never be mean. But honestly, we deserve better.
Yeah.
We deserve better than that.
I think I've gone on record as I view Mike Garcia as a congressman as an embarrassment for this district. Actually, let me ask you something. You keep using the word queer. A lot of people would see the term queer as a derogatory term. Are you taking it back, or because queer obviously means different, unique, or odd,
questioning, different, you know, and yes, we want to take the term back.
Okay.
Because we don't want to. It's a part of our identities, and you know, someone like myself, I'm lesbian. You can call me a lesbian. You can call me gay. Bi clearly doesn't apply, but I don't know. Queer just covers it all. It's just we're different from what people see, and so I have always gone with queer.
You know what? I tell you honestly though, queer bothers me because because I understand the term meaning unusual or different, and I would prefer to think of somebody in the gay community as really no different than anybody else.
Well, technically, we shouldn't even have any titles.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So if we're going to put a title, I am different.
No?
I'm
Okay.
different. You know, I'm different from what people expect from me, right? And because, you know, I look and dress the way that I do and who I am, you know, I've even been called like, oh, are you trans? It's like, no, very much a female. I just like to dress like this.
Well, there is a certain kind of an androgynous look to what you're saying. You know, with the jacket and everything like that. And nothing wrong with it. There is a certain androgyny to it.
Yeah.
So, let's find out about what kind of Democrat you are and what you would do in Congress.
Okay.
Okay. Are you a Bernie or a Biden person?
Oof. I'm a Rhoda person. No, I'm just
I mean, that seems to be the divide that we see, particularly in the Democrats out here, is there are I guess for myself too, is the pragmatic Democrats that see Biden as doing what he can, as best he can. And there are the Bernie people that are like, no Medicare for all right now, you know, kind of thing, that are more demanding about a lot more progressive attitudes and stuff like that. Well, where do you see yourself?
Would it be fair to say I see myself as a Elizabeth Warren person?
Okay. I would put that more on that's right on the middle.
Right smack in the middle?
Right in the middle there. I like Elizabeth Warren a lot too. Let's talk about if you get elected.
Yes.
What's the first thing you want to do when you get in the office?
This is where it makes me a Bernie person. Medicare.
Medicare for all?
Medicare for all.
You think? Well, I mean, I love the idea of Medicare for all. But it just seems like, I mean, when you look at all the hard stops we keep getting on things that are just common sense kind of bills, with the Republicans fighting it, how is that ever going to get through?
Well, that's why this election is very important, and we need to continue to have the main majority of the House and the Senate, because we're never going to get much done with the current situation that we're in. But when it comes to Medicare, what politicians need to understand on both sides is that this will help people on so many levels. This will help people not go into poverty, not go into debt, not go into losing their homes and homeless. You know, when my father passed away, he hadn't seen a doctor in God knows how many years. He was 56 years old. He should have been having a checkup every year. Well, we couldn't afford to go to a doctor's appointment. We couldn't afford to have the health insurance to see a doctor, let alone even the co-payment that would come with insurance, right?
Yeah.
And so when we had to rush him to Olive View Hospital because that was the only public hospital that we could take him to. And we find out that he has cancer, pancreatic cancer. You know, they seem pretty optimistic. And then he starts his chemo, and that's where he deteriorated within less than 3 months.
Jeez.
We were told he was going to live another 5 years. 5 years turned into 3 months. We're like, okay, we're grieving. We're going to bury him. Now we have all the funeral costs that we were not prepared for.
Right.
That is also very expensive.
Right.
And then a month later, I get a bill from, because I checked the mail in the home, I open a bill from a letter from all of you, and then here's your bill for $200,000.
Jesus.
What? I'm a sophomore in college. I barely made it through the semester because I was losing my father right in the middle of finals. I have a 10-year-old sister. My mom doesn't work because she's been a homemaker. And my brother just barely got a decent job that he's finally able to make a life for himself. What are we supposed to do with this? No.
I think there should be like a situation, like a guarantee. You know, if the patient lives, then you pay the expenses.
Right.
You know? I mean, I can't imagine with that kind of bill what you can how to handle that or what to do with it.
But think about it. Even if the person does survive,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
When is he going to start working again?
Yeah.
When is he going to start working again to pay such a ridiculous...
Or should somebody have to pay that kind of money just to live? It's not his fault that he got the cancer.
Right.
You know, I mean, I have less sympathy for some people that smoke 2 packs a day and, you know, are 400 pounds overweight.
Right.
But, you know, somebody who just got cancer, you know, or got a disease, you know, even COVID, you know, it's like, it's not necessarily their fault that they have, you know, so why should they be subjected to those kind of expenses?
Exactly.
So, well, let me ask you this then. Do you consider yourself, you say you believe in Medicare for all. Do you consider yourself a fighter or more of somebody who is willing to compromise? The reason I ask that is because, I mean, I think Medicare for all will happen one day, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. There may be things on the horizon that are more palpable to the entire Congress and stuff like that. For example, a public option.
Sure.
Would you support something like that, or would you fight just to keep the Medicare for all to happen?
You know, I think we need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? So if we can start somewhere and agree to something like a public option, it's a good route to go. But of course, like even with the ACA, you know, there's room for improvement, and there needs to be some improvement there. And so, but we can build on that. We can expand that. And so you asked me, am I a fighter or a compromising person, or do I sit down and I like to, I'm a problem solver by nature. I like to sit down and talk about it, get all the facts, and then make a decision and work to it. And if I need to, I'm willing to sit down and listen to the other side and hear what they have to say. I'd be willing to reach over and be like, hi, if you want to have a conversation, let's have a conversation.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
None of this like Republican, that's what upsets me, and that's what I'm tired of, is that we're not going to pass this bill because the Democrats are the ones who proposed it. We're not going to vote on this because the it's like, can we please focus on the people here who are struggling, who are literally dying because politicians want to sit there and I want my party to get the credit for it. I mean, what are we, just a game here? You know how much I had to fight to get to where I am today, how many hurdles I had to get through to even have a degree and an education and a job. You know, it's not easy. I'm lucky. I consider myself very, very blessed, whereas other people haven't been, who have ended up on streets.
Do you think Nancy Pelosi is doing a good job?
I think she is.
Would you support her if she goes again for another term as a speaker?
I may. I think it would be great to see someone else given a shot at this, but
do you think it's necessary? I mean, that's kind of where the Democrats are splitting. Some feel that it's time for Pelosi to go.
Yeah.
Others feel that she's, there's nobody better. So I mean, I'm kind of asking you to pick.
I guess the question is, what are our options, right?
Yeah.
Who could replace her and be a fighter? Because I believe in giving people a chance to step up, especially the new generation, pass the baton. You know, that's what's important. But Nancy is a fighter.
Yeah.
She will stand up, and she will not be like, one of my favorite photos of her is standing up to Trump in that meeting.
Yeah.
I have that picture in my office.
Do you?
Yeah, I love it because she's not gonna take any sort of pressure or bullying. She's not gonna accept it.
Do you think Biden's doing a good job?
I think he's doing, given what he walked into, I think he's doing a good job. I think there are things that he needs to focus on, especially when it comes to, I'm still holding him accountable for the, cancel student debt loans. Like, that was part of the campaign.
Yeah.
The children in the borders who are being held in detention camps, in detention centers, we need to move a little bit quicker on these things.
Yeah.
These are humans who are stuck there, children who don't need to be there. Why are we waiting on that?
If you were elected as a Democrat, would you vote only on party lines, or could you see yourself crossing over to support a Republican idea?
For me, whatever is going to be beneficial to the district and to the people of this country is what I'm going to be voting on and supporting. And I know that politics is not that easy. It's not, but the change needs to come from somewhere, because frankly, we're not getting anything done, and we're seeing people struggle because of it. What's
one Republican idea that you support? Is there anyone you can think of that you go, that's not a bad idea?
That's a hard one. Yeah. You've stumped me. Man.
No?
I can't think of one.
Okay, well, you can email me if you think of something later.
I will. I'm sorry, my brain is just
that's okay.
wired
like
right
I said,
now.
It's a tough question. It's a tough question.
I love it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the issues then, okay? We talked about Obamacare and health care. You mentioned student loan forgiveness. Do you think that's something that needs to be done? How much should there be as far as student loan debt forgiven, if any? Should it apply to people that went to private schools as well?
I think, this situation is so broad. You have different schools, different costs. You go to a state school, it's cheaper than a private school, and you get to make that decision. One thing that I think what Biden needs to do is kind of stick with what he said. If you're going to promise that, and if that's something that you're going to work towards, then I'd love to see him work towards canceling the amount that he did say. It's possible. But for me, based on my experience, I went to Cal State Northridge, and in 2003, straight out of high school, that's where I went. And tuition in 2003 was somewhere around 2,000, 3,000-ish. And then I went back in 2016, and it had jumped over $9,000.
Jeez.
And
it's not cheap.
It's not. And I mean, compared to a $40,000 university that's private, okay, it's cheaper, but this was my only option. Because I looked at private universities, it would be much quicker and easier for me to go through. But then I compare the cost, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to go to a private school. I have to go back to CSUN. And so at that point, I was 31 years old, so I was working full time, and I had to work and study. So I was an Uber driver. I pulled out loans. But I will tell you one thing. This got me into, because right at this time I made a decision to step down from being a minister. This helped me find my new way of serving the community, and that was being an IHSS worker, an in-home caretaker, and eventually becoming an SEIU 2015 member, which I still am because I still do that. So I was taking care of an elderly couple, doing Uber, I had loans, and I was barely not making it. And so looking at that, we need to definitely do something about education. It needs to be affordable. I know everyone's like, oh, free college, you all want everything for free, but we need our kids to go to college, get their degree, and begin working and be able to purchase homes and make enough to have children and all that. One of the challenges, like my partner and I are dealing with, is that if we even considered having kids, we would consider adoption, but it's like we don't have the means. We don't have the financial, we're not at that place to be able to have kids.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's pricey.
It's pricey, it's expensive, and you want to provide a good life for them. Yeah. But it's impossible. For our generation right now, it's very difficult. And so we need to be able to help our next generation to not end up in $200,000 in debt and then getting a entry-level job making barely like $40,000.
Right.
You know, how are you supposed to live on that? So, yes.
I would like to. Well, you mentioned, for full disclosure to the audience, I do allow my guests to submit some ideas for what they want to talk about, and you did mention the immigration and the border. What do you think is the solution for the border? Mike Garcia seemed very obsessed with it, and I'm wondering what you think is the best way to handle it, the problems with it.
You know, the United States has always been a country that provided a safe place for asylum seekers to come and to apply and to come in. My own family members who literally escaped out of Iran on a bus went to the UN and sought asylum to come to the US because they would have been killed if they had stayed. So we have these individuals from all over the world who are coming to our borders seeking help. And we are a nation of immigrants, and we need to provide a way for them to enter legally and to be able to go through the asylum process and not have them, all right, come back for your court date. Where are they supposed to go? What are they supposed to do? If we really are a nation that is welcoming to immigrants, we need to have a proper system. And then it's the pathway to citizenship.
Right.
I mean, now it has become so difficult. I have friends that, I know many immigrants who it's taken them, before it used to take about 5 years, it took our family about 5 years to go through the citizenship process.
Yeah.
Now it's like, from the people that I know, it's taken them 7 to 8 years.
Jeez.
And it's really difficult. So we need to invest, whether it's if it's a lack of money or resources or individuals that need to be working through the process to get these cases going quicker and to be able to help people to get to where they are. So that way, if there are background checks, if they do have a record, and we need to know those things, then we need a process that moves quickly. And instead of them waiting for so long at borders or just hoping to get in illegally and work their way out,
Are you a supporter of the Green New Deal?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Have you thought about what committees you would like to be on if elected?
I've thought about it, not often enough, because I need to do more of where do I want to work and where do I want to be impactful. I think foreign would be one thing that I'd be very interested in, being Iranian and knowing the Middle East and knowing the relationship that I have with people who live in different countries and the challenges that, so foreign policy was something that is very interesting to me, that I'd be very passionate about. But I haven't decided yet, because I feel like it would also impact who is in the congressional class when we come in, and how we can work together to be impactful and to get things done and to be able to, I think Finance Committee would be a very interesting one to be a part of, because to be able to hold money and where it's going and coming accountable to see, finance and foreign are the two that are very that stand out to me.
Okay. Let me scrutinize you a little bit here.
Uh-oh.
So the big question I think a lot of people have for you is, you work at Skirball, correct?
Yes.
Do you live in the district? Do you live in this district, the 25th district?
I moved in December, which was a month and a half before I decided to run for Congress. Sarah and I decided to move to the West LA area because it would be closer to her place of work, and because she doesn't like to sit in traffic, but
who does? Nobody goes, hey, I can't wait to spend 2 hours in traffic.
Amen to that, man. I don't mind it. Growing up here, for me, you just kind of get used to it.
Did you grow up in this area here in the Santa Clarita district?
I lived in Northridge for 28 years. Okay. And I spent a lot of my time in the San Fernando, Santa Clarita Valley, because my brother owned a home out here. He has children go to school here. And so a lot of family activities that we would do have always been here. The soccer practices, I always come out here. When they have their piano recitals, I'm always out here. So I've spent majority of my time out here.
But to be clear, you do not have an address in the 25th district. Is that correct?
Currently, no.
Okay. Are you going to move?
Sarah and I are actually have been looking at houses. So we're trying to find the right one and kind of see where her job is going to be. Will she be able to work from home? And, all of those things considering. But yeah.
Well, are you familiar with the history in this district itself as far as the elected officials for the 25th district?
Yes.
Okay. The term that people throw around a lot to people that come in and run is carpetbagger. How do you feel when someone says that about you?
I really hope that people really know where that word came from before they
I don't think a lot of people do, to be honest with you.
I would recommend people to really look into where the word came from. Yeah. Honestly, I understand. Yeah. I understand why people call me that or want to call me that or feel that I am one. Does it make me feel a certain way? Does it bother me? Yeah, of course. Who likes to be called a carpetbagger?
Well,
right?
I think some people would say, you're coming into this district. What do you know about this district? How do you, who are you to represent from this district? And I don't care either way personally, but it is one thing that comes up a lot with questions, particularly with the Democratic activists out here. What do you know about the local issues out here?
If you really want to get down to the details, Porter Ranch is also part of this district, which is literally less than 2 miles from where I live. Okay. So a lot of times people think, individuals who live in the Antelope Valley, it's like, this is the district, or it's Santa Clarita, or it's Simi Valley, but it's like Porter Ranch is like right there. Sure. So if my home had been 2 miles north of that, it would be we wouldn't be talking about this.
Yeah, I understand that.
We everyone wants to grill me on it, and I respect that. And
well, it's not a grill. I'm not trying to grill you. I'm asking.
No. Definitely.
People want to know, why are you running in this district?
Right.
If your address isn't actually in this district as of right now.
Well, when you spend 28 years near, people will say, okay, you didn't have an address in the district. I spent 28 years. My address was on in Northridge, right? Northern part of Northridge. And I spent most of my time coming back and forth on the 5, on the 14th, going here and doing that, staying the nights out here. I feel like this is part of my home because I grew up here. I spent, you know, I don't want to repeat myself, but I spent a lot of time up here where it's a part of my memory, it's part of my history, it's a part of a lot of the people that I love and care about live here. And so I want to be able to represent them as well.
Let's quiz you a little bit here.
Sure.
This is the tough stuff here. This is some of the local issues that are happening in this district. Like for example, the Santa Susana cleanup situation, and Whitaker Burmite. Do you have any opinions on those issues or thoughts on them?
So I'll be very honest with you that whether I live in Northridge or here or wherever I live, I didn't get very into reading local or challenges and circumstances that are going on.
Right.
So I'm a very honest person. I don't lie. I just can't hide it for the life of me. That's why I could never be a lawyer or anything like that. But I'm aware of the problems. I don't know enough about them to have an opinion on them, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm picking some stuff that, like, it's really very, very locally oriented here. But let's put it this way. If you're elected to Congress, what are you going to do for this district? What is it that you want to do for this district alone? Not just voting for, say, Medicare for all or, reducing student debt, but what will you bring to the 25th district itself?
I think what is important is what I'm going to take with me are the voices and the things that are important for this district with me to DC.
Okay.
To be able to fight for the things that will impact us. I know we say Medicare for all, yes, it's for the entire nation, but that will help our district out as well. This will impact District 25 greatly, and so would climate change and the Green New Deal. And when we experience the fires that we've experienced already this year, we need to fight for change so that's not happening. This is a public safety issue for people like us here because it's our homes that are in danger, our businesses that are in danger that need to be protected. And so if we don't stop climate change, for example, now, and we just keep going, how many more people have to lose their homes?
Right.
How many more people have to lose their businesses? So it's working on the things that, yes, on a federal level impacts everyone in the nation, but also the things that are going to matter the most here. And I think when it comes to, public education, affordable college, medical for all, and climate change, these three things are very important. And immigration.
Yeah.
There's 19% of the registered voters are immigrants. That's nearly 1 in 5 people are immigrants who vote. And so it's like, then they have family members that are going to come. There are people who are probably, they don't have their paperwork yet. So I want to be able to fight for those people who live here. And we know that we have them here. And they deserve to have someone who's going to be in their corner, unlike Mike Garcia.
Have you been involved with any of the clubs out here, the Democratic activist clubs? Have you met any of the Democratic leaders that are involved out in this district?
I have met with I've spoken to a few because I haven't been able to. You're the first person I'm able to meet in person in months, but I have had quite a few Zoom conversations with quite a few leaders actually, and most conversations have been great. Some have been, the question of, like, we asked that you don't live in the district, so that has always been a challenge, but for the most part, it's been good. I've really enjoyed meeting everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said yourself you're a people person.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything for Pride Month, particularly on events out here in this district?
I will actually be at the Pride events on the 26th in Palmdale.
Okay.
And we'll be in Simi Valley. I don't have my schedule in front of me, but there are 2 more that I'm going to. There's one that's like Iranian LGBTQ.
That's a select group.
It is, because
There'll be like 3 of you there.
actually you'd be surprised.
Really?
But we're kind of gathering it all of LA. So we're inviting all of LA because we know that there's few of us spread around, but once we're all together, it's nice to see people that, who get what you've been through.
Okay. All right, we're going to move to some fun stuff. Let me make sure I'm in. Yeah, there we go. Okay. We're going to go to Ryan's question.
Okay.
Ryan is from the audience who don't know, Ryan is my 10-year-old son. And I like to try and get him engaged in politics a little bit. And he always has one question for the guest.
Okay.
So his question is this.
Hey Rhoda, what was your favorite part of being a pastor, and are you still religious?
Oh man, my absolute favorite part of being a pastor was working as a youth pastor, working with young people and creating a safe space for them to come and to be themselves, ask any questions they wanted, share whatever they wanted, because coming from a Middle Eastern background in a very conservative Christian church, when you are growing up, you have a hard time battling the American culture and the Iranian culture and then the Christian culture, right? So these children were really struggling.
Right.
And so to be able to have someone that you can go to talk about, your problems. My mom says I can't have a boyfriend until I'm 18, but there's a guy I like, and the person is like 13 years old. And so it's like, really, to be able to share that, because I never had that. And I wanted to make sure that anyone that I came across would never have to experience that. And so I still have notes that the students would write to me. I have them in my journals, and honestly, that was the best. And it was fun. We would make like in and out trips, and like we'd come to Six Flags, and of course I would leave by the end of the day with my back like hurting because I have back issues. But and am I religious? I'm spiritual.
Okay.
I'm spiritual, and I still am a practicing Christian.
Okay.
And yeah, I love it.
Okay, well, let's have some fun here.
Let's do it.
Some goofy stuff here.
I love it.
What's your first concert that you went to?
Oh, no, it's embarrassing.
No, come on.
First concert, I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
Sugar Ray.
Sugar Ray, all right. Yeah, that is a little embarrassing. What's your favorite movie?
Just Friends.
Just Friends, what is that?
It's a rom-com. I'm silly.
Just Friends, isn't that Natalie Portman and Ashton Kutcher?
No. Gosh, what's his name? The guy who plays...
Someone's screaming right now going, I know who this answer.
Oh my goodness. Who's that silly comic?
Oh, Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds.
That's right. Okay.
He is hilarious, and I absolutely love him, and he's wonderful in that movie. I'm a hopeless romantic, and I love comedy, so rom-coms are it for me. I love it.
Okay. Are you a Marvel or DC fan?
DC. Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman every time.
Yes.
She's your favorite superhero?
Heck yes.
All right. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Favorite Disney character?
I'm going to say Jasmine from Aladdin.
Okay.
The only character I could relate to growing up.
Who could make a better movie, Billy Wilder or God?
Oh my gosh. I have no clue.
You know who Billy Wilder is?
I don't know who that is, sadly.
You should, because Skirball's doing a class on it right now, on Billy Wilder.
Yeah, you know what I do at Skirball, right?
No, I have no idea what you do at Skirball. What do you do at Skirball?
I oversee the property. So
Okay.
I'm all into facilities and,
I see.
ask me what tree that is. I'll tell you what tree
Billy
it is.
Wilder made the
Yes.
apartment, Sunset Boulevard, Some Like It Hot,
Okay.
things like that. So the question is, would he make a better movie or God?
Since I know God, I'm going to say God.
Well, it's actually a trick question. Billy Wilder is God.
Okay, of course.
What did you think of Bill and Ted Face the Music? Did you see it?
No,
All right. Did you see any of the Bill and Ted movies?
probably not.
Oh, shame on you. You said you're a hopeless romantic. It's.
I know. I'm sorry.
What do you think about Robert Pattinson as Batman?
I like it.
You like the idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a food you can't stand?
No, I love food.
Just anything.
Honestly, I would say not that I can't stand. My least favorite would be pho. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but pho, I don't.
What is that?
It's the soup. I believe it's Vietnamese that has an egg in it. And
Oh, okay.
Broth. See,
I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy, so
Yeah,
you know.
easy.
Do you have any tattoos?
I have a whole sleeve of tattoos.
Do you really?
I do.
Right on that side.
Yep. And it's a whole story of my life on it.
The story of your life as a tattoo.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
pictures. I have a picture of my dad, a quote from one of his songs, "The Tree," that is by his grave, like the story of a deer. I mean, this would have to be another podcast of just explaining my tattoo, but it's a good one.
Give me your elevator pitch, like 60 seconds. Why someone should vote for you?
Well, 60 seconds, man. You can't tell a pastor you got 60 seconds.
Yeah. Them's the rules.
I know. Well, I've spent majority of my life serving people, and my heart is for the people, and I want to be able to help. And being a person who has gone through many, many trials and has been able to get lucky enough to get to this point, I want to be able to represent the people of this district. I want to connect with them. I want to be able to protect our democracy and our right to vote, and to be someone who's not about just party, but it's about the people and bringing it back to them.
Yeah.
And that's what a representative does. And I believe I'm that person who's going to be able to do that, because my life has been dedicated to serving people.
How do people get in touch with you or your campaign? Is there a website or anything?
Website is Rhoda for Congress. Rhoda for Congress on Instagram, on Facebook and Twitter. We have, our phone number, email, everything is online. That's going to be the easiest way.
Okay. Now I'm going to put you on the spot. I need your best evil villain laugh.
Oh my gosh. I can't. That's it. That's all you're gonna get.
That's it right there.
I told you, there's not like anything evil in this. I can't even fake an evil laugh.
Okay.
There you go. That's it.
Okay, there you go. How about a joke?
Okay. Let's see. Why does a pitcher raise one leg?
I don't know. Why?
Because if he raised both, he would fall.
Bingo. That That's a great answer. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. I wish you much luck in the election.
Thank you.
There is the possibility the Talk of Santa Clarita may sometime way down the road do a primary debate with the other Democratic candidates. We're at least talking to some people about it. I'm hoping that you would like to participate. Put you on the spot right now and ask you.
You must join. No. Well, definitely let me know.
Yeah.
And based on scheduling and things like
We'll
that,
work it out.
I know it's way ahead, but
it's way down the line.
Yeah,
but
let us know.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Great. So RhodaForCongress.com.
.com.
Yes. All right. Rhoda, I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
Wish you much luck in the election.
Thank you so much.
You're an excellent candidate. I really enjoyed talking to you with a great story behind you. So
thanks for having me.
No problem. And maybe hoping you'll come back and see us again in the future.
For sure.
Okay, we hope you guys enjoyed the talk.
Thanks.
You've been listening to the Talk of Santa Clarita. Listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud.com, YouTube, and Stitcher. Barring a life event getting in the way, a new podcast is available every Tuesday. Questions, comments, and show ideas can be sent to thetalkofsantaclarita@gmail.com. You can also call or text us at 661-505-8672. That's 661-505-8672. Follow us on Twitter at The Talk of SC or on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at The Talk of Santa Clarita. You can also visit our website by going to www.thetalkofsantaclarita.com. This has been a production of Radio Free Santa Clarita Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. To donate, go to radiofreesantaclarita.org/donate. Radio Free Santa Clarita, on the net and on the air, and we're very much aware.
Any questions?